you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Tried to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away, as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music. Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man Andy Gillard here. Hope everybody's keeping well in the world right now.
Hello everyone, Stu here. Apparently saying Merry Christmas last week was inappropriate, so I'll say it again now. Welcome aboard.
We've got with us Ed this week. Ed, is it too early for Happy Christmases still?
No, Merry Christmas. I'm not, maybe not the movies, but everything else I'm all in on Christmas like Stu. I'd have my tree up now, I think, if it was up to me.
You know, a peek behind the curtain. Andy sent us a message a couple of days ago saying that he was going to get it up early and all, and showing a blank space on top of a cupboard where a little tree could go. 3 years ago, 3 years ago, he would never have even contemplated it.
It's the warming of the heart.
Yeah,
I'm just going to edit this bit out because it never happened. Right, we're here to discuss One Season Wonders. It's a TV series that just had one season, a mini-series, top 5 episode. We'll go around the room. I'll go first, Stu, then Ed, because that's how it's laid out on my screen, so it works perfectly and should make it easy to keep track of where we are. 5 to 2, honourable mentions, then we'll give our number ones, and then me and Stu are going to have to talk about Astro Boy. That was the film, wasn't it, Stu?
yeah.
Because if it wasn't, I've watched the wrong thing. Yeah, and then we'll talk about that in the postscript of the episode. So yeah, let's start off. The number 5 on my list is a TV show that was out on Netflix a couple of 3 years back called When They See Us, starring Michael Kenneth Williams, Jarrell Jerome, Ingenue Ellis Taylor, Felicity Huffman. This is the story of the Central Park 5. So it's based on a true story of a woman who was brutally gang raped in Central Park back in 1989.
I remember this.
5 young boys were arrested. One of them was tried as an adult and went to adult prison. It turns out that they weren't actually guilty of this crime, even though they spent a lot of time. A lot of people, including the president-elect, called for their execution based on it. It was a traumatic event. I think it's something that scarred America, or at least New York, for quite a while. And I think it's something that is still being felt now. Like, as far as I'm aware, I think that the boys have tried to sue Donald Trump over his column in the New York Post. It's a big event in their history. Ava DuVernay is a writer-director I've got a lot of time for anyway. I think she deals with some of these topics with such subtlety, but with a sledgehammer at the same time. Like, she really knows how to ram the message home of how difficult that life can be. It was a 4-episode series. The first episode is about the incident and the arrests, then the trials, the incarceration, and then the exoneration and the aftermath. It was just an incredible series. So moving, so impactful. Absolutely loved it. I think because of it being Netflix, it kind of suffered from being hot shit for a minute and then sort of fell out of the consciousness of people. But it was excellent.
I'm sure it definitely featured on our top 5 of the year or top 10 of the year, whichever one we did that year. Because I remember watching it as well, and there was the other one as well that it's probably going to be on your list, and so I'll leave it for now. But yeah, it was. I'd completely forgot about that. I can't believe it's 5 years old.
Yeah, I'm sure it was 20. I'm sure it was pandemic era, wasn't it? It was when that one came out, if I remember rightly. I should probably have written the year down. When they see us.
Yeah, it says 2019 on there, but that's probably its production date.
Yeah, it would have been. So I'm sure it was in the depth of the pandemic and stuff when we got round to actually seeing that one. But yeah, excellent. You've seen that one, Ed?
No, I haven't. No, but while you were talking, I just quickly Googled it because I remembered the incident. I don't remember it because I was like 5, 4, but I know of the incident, and I'm just reading up now. So people were sentenced to 15 years in prison, released after 13 years, and then finally were exonerated. They settled for 41 million. It sounds like an absolute. What's the basis? Is it because they were walking around in black? Is that we're not trying to make it base level.
No, I mean, it does appear that was pretty much the crux of the argument that they made, because one of the kids said something about wilding, and it seems like that one word they used was the basis for the whole trial against them, like a disgusting miscarriage of justice. It's worth seeing just for the performance of Jharrel Jerome. So all of the youngsters in it, they play, there's a younger version of them when they go into jail because they're young people. And then when they come out, it's played by a different actor as the grown-up version of them. But because Jharrel Jerome was I think he was 16 when it happened, 17 when he was arrested, he was charged as an adult, even though he wasn't really an adult. So he was still a kid in an adult prison, and by doing it that way, they had one actor play the character throughout, whereas everyone else, they had a youngster and a grown-up play them afterwards to sort of differentiate between the two periods of life, whereas they just got a young guy to play him throughout. And it made it so, the impact of that when you were seeing this young kid surrounded by 30-odd-year-olds, it really rammed home how horrible it must have been for this young lad. Incredible. And I'll watch anything with Michael Kenneth Williams in as well. I think he's a tremendous actor. Again, this might have been one of the earlier things that I'd seen him in. There's only a handful, but he's always good in anything as well. So some good performances.
I just scrolled down. on the Wikipedia, and I've seen good old President Trump saying, "Bring back the death penalty for these kids."
Yeah,
and he took out a full-page ad in whatever newspaper he was obviously in charge of, or put the money behind it, and obviously,
yeah,
unsurprisingly, he backed the wrong horse.
Yeah, shocker. Stu, your number 5, please.
I mean, there was a discrepancy because one of mine, Ed has mentioned, and I thought it wasn't allowed for reasons. So let's just put it there. So my 5 should have contained one of Ed's, but it doesn't. So for now, we're going with what I put originally. And obviously number 5, it's not a mini-series, but it was only a 1-season wonder, amazingly, which I thought I was right about, but then couldn't believe that it was only 1 series. And it is Captain Scarlet and the Mr. Ones.
Really?
Yeah, it was 1 continuous series. Unlike Thunderbirds, which was 2, split over a summer, Captain Scarlet was 1 continuous series.
And way better than Thunderbirds.
Potentially.
Oh, I think it is. Yeah.
It's it was one of them where obviously when Andy might have watched it when it came out first time round, but
We
Fucking 60s, when
but yeah, I watched it obviously in the. I presume it was early 90s. Yeah, it was because of the whole Blue Peter thing.
they did a BBC Two rerun, didn't they? If I remember. right.
Tracy Island blew up, didn't it? So, well, not literally, but and then they all got back into everyone got back into the puppet shows, didn't they?
Yeah, and Cloud-Based 9 and everything. I actually did have that one because I think they'd realised that they could make money off this and not just sell bits of plastic just to kids, and there was adults for this as well. So when it came around to Captain Scarlet time, after Stingray as well, but Captain Scarlet was great and quite terrifying as well. But the fact that Captain Black is Mikel Arteta, and it just is. And you look at them, never been seen together. Is he a vampire? Is he otherworldly? Is he a Martian? Who knows? But he's still here, and he's still getting mad every Saturday. So maybe that explains quite a lot. But yeah, Captain Scarlet is one of the best ones that no one ever talks about, ever. I love the enthusiasm on Ed's little face when I mentioned it. And it is because people who like Captain Scarlet absolutely love it. And for something that is a puppet show, that is about light circles on the ground being terrifying, way ahead of its time. And as per usual, the CG reboot was shit. Didn't work, wasn't the same. So shout out to the original 1960s Captain Scarlet and the Mistrons.
It's a good baddie. I think that's the key. The Mistrons, and then like you say, Mikel Arteta. It's a great double act of the mysterious, well, literally mysterious bad guy, and then the once hero now turned evil Captain Black. For me, it's the best of all of them. And like you say, around the early 90s when they rolled them back out, when Andy was about 30, apparently. I remember enjoying Captain Scarlet the most, definitely.
I don't know that I've ever seen Captain Scarlet.
Oh dear.
I remember Stingray.
Stingray.
Yeah, I remember that one. I remember that better than I remember Thunderbirds, to be honest. The vague recollections of Thunderbirds.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, exactly.
dirty boy.
I was never a huge fan of that whole marionette thing. I think I probably enjoyed it more when Team America came around. I think I sort of gave it another go then. But yeah, I don't think I've got any recollection whatsoever of it, to be honest.
I was very surprised when they did a special thing at the art gallery at the time.
Yeah.
And I was surprised at the size of them. I thought they would be a lot smaller than that.
Yeah, chunky boys, isn't they?
Yeah, but and it makes you kind of appreciate it even more that those dolls were that, not even 12, they were 20-inch tall, you'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's that much emotion in them that the whole world around it must have been massive. And obviously, it's a kind of shame that we don't have behind the scenes footage of that stuff, because that would be amazing. But then, time.
Again, just looking it up, Stu, while you were talking, the budget for 1967 seems pretty good. So I'd imagine that's why it could be a big world. 1.5 million ITV ploughed into it. That's not scaled up. That's at the time.
Yeah, that explains a lot then, I think. Mm-hmm. Ed, 5, please.
Yeah, so mine is it's one series and it's on the BBC and it harks back a lot closer to yours, Andy, than it does Captain Scarlet. It's called I May Destroy You. Don't know if you watched it, but I think it's 8 or 9 episodes of a writer who in the first episode is raped. It's a predominantly black cast in London. She is raped on a night out where she does cocaine and gets a little bit tipsy, a little bit merry with all of her usual friend group. And you don't see it It's not quite as. Is it Derailed, the film with Jennifer Aniston, where you actually see the rape scene? Have you seen that film?
It rings a bell. I remember there was something, I can't remember exactly what it was.
It was an awful film, but that
Yeah.
part of the film was incredibly harrowing because you actually see, and it turns out that she wasn't raped. It's all setting up. It's Clive Owen, I think, plays the main character. So you don't see it at this point, and then the rest of the series is her piecing it together from flashbacks from the night, and it's full of. It's the whole thing. I mean, it's based on on real experiences. So that Michaela Cole wrote it, and she was sexually assaulted while she was doing a run at the Edinburgh Fringe.
Oh, okay.
By someone that she knew. So that's where it starts from, and she plays this writer in this. And the first few episodes is everyone telling her she's wrong. All the people she was with that night, no one would do it. We've known them for years. We know all of them. She's phoning around people saying, "What do you remember? How did I get home?" And everyone's telling her, "You went home with X. It was all fine." And then we go down the route of no one taking it seriously. Her friends don't take it seriously, so she doesn't. Then she keeps getting more flashbacks. So she then says, "This definitely happened." So she gets tested, prove that she had some kind of sexual contact, but we don't know how. But she insists that, to the police, and the police, again, I think really cleverly played by a black woman. So we don't have that obvious black and white standing off, or male, female standing off against each other. And she doesn't really believe her either, because she admits to being on cocaine that night. You don't know what you were doing. And the whole thing is just, it unravels in front of her. So she's also trying to have a normal relationship. She's getting close to someone who then, he does something he shouldn't. I think when they're, I'm trying to remember it exactly, but without trying to spoil it for people that want to go back and watch it, but he does something during some kind of sexual act, which brings it all back to her again. And it culminates in her remembering, getting the confession, and then deciding to walk away from it. And I wasn't overly happy with the ending, and the ending's a bit of a letdown because you kind of want retribution. But like her real life story, she decided to walk away from it and not let it define her, and that's what the character does. It's black comedy, so there are some moments in it that make you chuckle, but it is a little bit of a difficult watch at times when the flashbacks come back and the other different things that happen to her. But it's a really well written series. It's maybe a couple of episodes too long, but it's for a one series wonder. It's worth a watch. It's on iPlayer.
Yeah, it's been on my list since it was first out, and every time I go on the iPlayer, I see it there and think I will watch that one day. And I think because it being on the iPlayer, I go on it so rarely that it slips my mind. Like I feel like I need to put it on a list somewhere and make sure that I sit down and watch it, because it doesn't just get rave reviews; it gets whatever the next level above that is. Like it's on like the god tier list of a lot of critics, TV critics, and what have you. So it is something that's supposed to be very powerful, and as you say, actually quite funny as well in parts.
And she plays the anti-hero because she isn't necessarily likable either. So you obviously you're rooting for her to find out what happened, but also she's a bit of not necessarily a waster, but she kind of floats around, and he's a bit flaky in terms of her main character, which means that you don't root against her, of course, but you're not as invested in her, but you're invested in the story, which I think is a really interesting way of doing it.
It kind of sounds like it's drawing some comparisons to Baby Reindeer.
Yeah, but much better written.
Okay. Yep. It's been on my list. Stu, you looked a little bit blank when Ed announced it, so I'm guessing it's a new one to you.
Never heard of it before. But again, if it's one of these things that, when do you watch BBC?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's either, if it's not trailed on in a podcast, which is where I learned about Blue Lights, which again worked. You try it on all the podcasts all over the place, not just BBC Sounds ones. You get some interest in it, and Blue Lights is amazing. But again, doesn't qualify because you've got 2 series now. But yeah, completely gone, completely out of my head. Never heard of it before. But then you go on iPlayer sometimes, mainly for Match of the Day, Match of the Day 2. And there's so much stuff on there.
Yeah.
What is all this? And like half of it, you've got no one's ever spoken a word about.
I think because they've got BBC Three, it's like a streaming only thing now. There is an absolute wealth of stuff on there that would probably appeal to pretty much everybody, but because it's on there, it doesn't get the advertisements or anything that a lot of other shows get. So it ends up just sort of almost a Netflix effect, but maybe worse because it just gets forgotten about quite quickly, unfortunately. My number 4, like after talking about something super serious, I suppose this is also a little bit serious. It's the Watchmen TV series. That I thought this was absolutely fantastic, and it felt like it was going to be the start of this world building, everything around Watchmen. I remember that DC Comics were doing they were sort of introducing the Watchmen into the main DC Comics continuity. There was all talk about, there's new films, there's this, that, and everything was going to, and it looked like they were going to push the Watchmen as being the future almost, even though obviously it's an old, like 1980s written Alan Moore, 12-issue comic book graphic novel. So it felt like that was going to be the start of it, but actually the director, writer never had any interest in doing anything outside of these. If I remember right, I think it was 12 episodes, and it was just going to be a 12-episode series, and it was going to be picking up just after the day with the giant squid. So they followed the comic book continuity rather than the film, the Zack Snyder continuity, where it was an atomic bomb that destroyed New York. It was actually a giant alien squid. I go back and forth on which one I think's the better ending, because the giant squid is a little bit silly. But anyway, that's a by the by. The TV series, Regina King, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Jeremy Irons, Gene Smart, Tim Blake Nelson. I'm like a stellar cast this did. It follows Regina King's character. She plays Angela Abar. It's a world where superheroes are outlawed now, and the only ones who are allowed to be masks are the police. So you have this interesting dynamic of the bad guys and the good guys not being easily identifiable. Angela Abar, who plays Sister Night, you also find out that her history, her family history, is somehow tied into all of this, and it all intertwines with this rise of white nationalists, white supremacist group called the 7th Cavalry. So we've got this sort of this new KKK basically that have come into this world, and everything is just really muddy and murky, and the reveal in the middle just knocks your socks off. If you're a fan of this world, it is just an incredible reveal that happens in it. I don't want to spoil it because I do think people should give this a watch. It's so incredibly well done. It's so well layered as well. Like, it's not just a simple, this is a comic book world, good versus evil, because it tells you more about the world we're in, where actually there's a lot of grey in between those two extremes as well. It was brilliant, and Regina King was fucking tremendous in this. I'd seen her in bits and bobs before and never really paid attention to her. But actually having seen her in this and now seeing her in other things, like, oh, actually, no, you've got real depth to your acting chops. She was fantastic in this. I would say to give this a watch, even if you've not read or seen the actual original comic book or films. I think it's worth your time, because you don't need to have that history of the Watchmen. But yeah, excellent. Such a really well made series.
Well, this was my problem with it, that I never watched it because it's based off. It starts after this event, and well, how am I supposed to know that? Because I'm not going to read anything about it, and that always put me off. So you're saying you don't need anything?
You don't need anything because it tells you as you go along.
Oh,
It
okay.
explains, like the only sort of, there's a bit where it rains these squid monsters, which are the thing that gets killed at the end of the book. But it explains where it comes from, and everything else is set so far after the original run of things that you don't really need to know anything. It will make the surprise better if you do, but at the same time, you don't need to because they explain why it's important. You've seen the film now, haven't you, Stu?
Yeah, years
Yeah.
and years ago.
Like you would get everything. The pretty much the only difference between the two is instead of it being an atomic bomb, it's this giant alien squid that comes to Earth that Voight is basically controlling. So it's an
Yes.
alien, a pretend alien.
I had that was one of the first Blu-rays that I sought out, the extended edition of that film. Because we did a bit at uni about who watches The Watchmen and all that stuff.
Oh, I did that. That might have been the same course that I was on.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, that was there. I picked it up. Yeah. Ed, have you seen Watchmen or the?
I've seen the
film?
original film, but I've not. Same reasons as Stu. I just assumed you'd need to know a little bit more about the backstory. When it comes to DC, though, they do dark and brooding really well, don't they? And The Watchmen was the best part of it for me. I do like the way DC seems to put it more in the real world, whereas Marvel's very much everything's hunky dory till it's not. Kind of, it's a little bit more gritty, isn't it, DC, which I do like. But yeah, it's one to actually watch them because I think you've done a really good job selling it. Because I enjoyed the film as well. When it came out, the film, it had a little bit of a mixed response, didn't it? If I remember rightly.
Yeah. I enjoy it, and I'm not a fan of his work, but I like visually, nothing comes close to it. I think it's outstanding, and yeah, it's a good film. It's probably the closest adaptation of any book I've ever seen. It does miss bits out with the Tales of the Black Freighter, but it's not really necessary. And if you are that interested, you want to see it all, there is a cut where they've spliced in the Black Freight stuff as well. So there's a shitload out there if you want to, but you don't need to go that deep to get something out of it.
We've said that about him before, though, that when he's fine when he's adapting other things and not doing it himself.
Yeah. And visually, like, I don't think you can knock him. Even Sucker Punch is visually excellent. It's just the worst film you've ever seen. It's terrible.
Oh, no. You haven't seen that knockoff Star Wars thing that he did.
Oh, no, I haven't. I haven't seen that. You are right.
It's not even... No, I'm not going to go there again. It pissed me off last year. I ain't doing it again.
I remember. Have you seen the second?
No, I'm not watching it. No.
You're done.
I mean, if I'm ever going to do that, which I'm kind of going to have to just out of curiosity, which I don't really have any of. But I'm going to have to watch it like on a day off in the middle of the afternoon because it sent me to sleep both times I tried to watch it. So I'm going to have to be fully awake and prepped to be fucked over again.
Right, Stu. Number 4 for you, please, mate.
Talking about being fucked over again, this is one that no one seems to have seen, and it is Flash Forward, which again just blank looks all round. It was like a kind of, I think what it was marketed as, because it's David S. Goyer as well, that this is your replacement for Lost. Now Lost is over, and so you had the premise of it. It's some kind of event worldwide that everyone blacks out for a couple of minutes and then they see 6 months into the future something that happened 6 months in the future. It's a hard sell because it sounds stupid, and obviously it is. But you look at the list and you got John Cho and Donny Monahan, the people you'd obviously know who are in it. It only lasted one season. It's probably, I can't remember being mad that it ended. They could have spinned it off loads of different ways, but it ended sufficiently well enough, even at the time, to think, yeah, this is not going to get a second season. We don't really need it. But it's one of the like mid-2000s. What was it, 2010-ish? Yeah.
2009, it's got on here.
Yeah, 2009 to 2010. Yeah, based on a 99 Canadian novel. So it's a bit out there. It's a hard thing to kind of get your head around, but it's a bit like Manifest. When this is what Manifest is what this could have been. Whereas Manifest did get its ending eventually. And whatever Matt says, I like that show, however stupid it is. But that does kind of verge off into religion and all kinds of stuff. And whereas Flash Forward was, everyone gets this flash of 6 months later, what are you going to do with it? And then you got these FBI investigating the phenomenon about it and trying to piece together what's going to happen in 6 months and the countdown towards that. It was really, really well done. But again, it was buried and they kind of pretended to be lost and all the kind of schlock at the time. And it was a shame. It feels like if this got the Manifest treatment and got put on Netflix, you'd have things like Joe, Screen Joe, and the usual. So audiences are loving this classic TV show and all this kind of thing. And like people will be wanking off over it all over the place. Like, oh, what? How did no one watch this at the time? Well, I did. No one else fucking did they? But yeah, it's if you're intrigued by this kind of thing, Flash Forward is a very good show.
Does it give you any sort of resolution within 23 episodes? Like a reasonable resolution?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
that's the most important thing, because if it's setting up a 6-month arc and then it never pays off what that event is, then I can see people being pissed.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at this. I've been watching for 14 years, but going on my. This is one of these things that hasn't been deleted, thankfully. I do remember it, and I don't feel like I was mad when it ended, thinking we need a second series, like we did with Jericho. When Jericho should have been on here, it should never have ended where it did, because that was stupid. Where they were all. Did you ever watch Jericho?
I don't think I finished it. I remember starting, because it's Skeet Ulrich, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember starting it, and I've got no recollection of ever finishing it.
Because it finished on a massive cliffhanger when all they needed was another 4 episodes to finish it off. And that's what they did. A couple of years later, they brought it back and finished it. I mean, I think they expanded it to about 6 or 8 or whatever it was for the second run. But Jericho was amazing. Brilliant. Buried.
Yeah. It felt, because there was a time where Channel 5 picked up a lot of those type of shows.
I think this was on 5 as well.
Yeah, because I remember the trailer for Flash Forward. And I remember thinking that looks interesting in a post X-Files kind of world. And then just never actually saw it on TV. Just remember the trailer, that was it. Ed? 4, please.
So this, and it shocked you, Andy, when I sent you my list earlier, is what feels like a stalwart of British comedy, The Day Today.
Oh, yeah.
It ran for 35 days, 6 episodes, and it's, for those who haven't seen it or those listening, the listeners in India in particular, I'm thinking, it's a spoof sort of news program, which has probably, if we were to watch it now, probably resonates even more. The main character is an argumentative presenter who shouts down his guests, Chris Morris, I think it is, who shouts down his guests, who brings people on, just have a go at them. I'm thinking Piers Morgan. And everything else that could be Good Morning, not Good Morning Britain. That one's the one that's vaguely right-wing. What's the one that's really right-wing?
TV News.
Yeah.
TV News.
And obviously, it was a radio show on Radio 4, written by Armando Iannucci, who's like British comedy gold legend. And of course, this is where we all get introduced to Alan Partridge. Alan Partridge plays the sports broadcaster. If you've ever seen the meme of him saying "go" and spinning around, that's off The Day Today. And when he just yells "twats" when the ball goes to the back of the net. Again, that's just on The Day Today. It is, if you look at the people behind this show and then what they go on to do, it's BBC Two in the 90s and early 2000s. Everything that made you laugh after The Watershed will have some link back to this. And like I said, I think the interesting thing looking this up is how much more sense it makes now with weird outside broadcasts. You know, they have people by the pyramids, but they're not talking about Egypt. You know, they make stories up about New Zealand starting a war with someone else, you know, and there's people pretending to be the IRA in the mid-90s. You know, Steve Coogan, I think, plays Jerry Adams in one of them, if I remember rightly. It just, it hits then, but the overviewing of it all now, I think the overarching thing, it's probably even more relevant now, I'd say.
Definitely. I think it is funny because I'm assuming that, like, obviously they were parodying things that they would have seen in the mid-90s. And the news has never, like, people have watched it and the news has continued to be a parody of itself at this point. Like, how do you not see something like the Day-to-Day lampoon what you're doing and then 30 years later still be doing the exact same kind of nonsense? And it really is pivotal when you think about it for someone like Chris Morris. Obviously, you got Chris Morris, Amanda Iannucci, Steve Coogan, those three. You've got your Partridge, Brass Eye, Nathan Barley, Four Lions, Veep,
The thick of it.
The thick of it. Like, the amount of work that they have sort of gone off and done that are all still sort of rooted in this socio-political nonsense. I mean, Partridge probably less so, but that's very much a parody of what we see on TV still. That is still very much in our day-to-day lives, I think. So this show, like I said to you, Ed, this feels like furniture because it feels like it's always been there. It's just, it's part of who, I don't know if it translates across the ocean, but it feels like it's part of who we are as British people with our comedy scene. It's so important, this show is. No, that's why I was surprised, because it's so important. If you told me there was 50 episodes of this, I would probably have believed you, because it's always been there. Yeah, incredible show.
It's a bit like the Fawlty Towers effect, where there's only 12, and it seems like there was like 80 of them. But yeah, when you're saying that it wouldn't translate, so that's the thing. There's no way on earth it would. A bit like how was it this time the Partridge one that was taking a piss at the one show, like that wouldn't translate either. It just wouldn't. And everyone knows that format who lives here, that they don't really have that kind of thing over there. And I think the thick of it does, because that's kind of a bit like how House of Cards did.
Yeah, well, like Veep was a really good US version of the thick of it, I think. But it's recognizable enough that you can tell it's the same person, but it's very rooted in America in the way that thick of it is very rooted in its Britishness, I think. You are, because if you watch any American news, it's so far removed from what we recognize. I think, like you said, like GB News is probably the closest we've got to an extreme here. But realistically, when you watch ITV, BBC, Sky News, it might lean one way or the other, but you wouldn't say that it is wholly left-wing, right-wing. It just sort of alludes to being something. Americans wear that on their sleeve.
Yep.
Like, they don't even pretend that Fox News is news. Like, you know, it's just gobshites.
I mean, the that stuff is just, it's ridiculous how close the RoboCop parody adverts and newscasts are now. If you're watching anything, this is not even, it's not even a joke anymore, because it's fact.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrifying, isn't it? My number 3 is a TV show starring Amy Adams, Patricia Clarkson, Eliza Scanlon, Sophia Ellis, Elizabeth Perkins, and Sydney Sweeney. And it's called Sharp Objects. And you both look completely lost. So, have either of you two seen the film Gone Girl? The Ben Affleck
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a movie. The original book was written by Gillian Flynn. This is Gillian Flynn's second book. I think she's only done 3, but Sharp Objects is the second book. Amy Adams plays a reporter who returns to her hometown after 2 young women are murdered. She's there to try and uncover everything whilst dealing with the demons of her past, her alcoholism and what's the word I'm looking for? She would cut herself,
Self-harm.
self-harm. I think I was gonna say self-immolate, but I don't think that's the right word.
No.
Yeah, so she was dealing with all these issues of her past and also having this really fractured relationship with her mother whilst moving back into her mother's house to deal with all of the ongoings in this small town world. I absolutely loved this show. I knew nothing about it when I went in other than it was Amy Adams. I mean, it was 2018, I think. So this would have been very early for Sydney Sweeney. Like, I don't think she was a name at that point. So going in, it was literally just off the back of Amy Adams and it being a Gillian Flynn adaptation. And it was absolutely outstanding. I love a good crime mystery drama. Like, I thought Gone Girl was a tremendous movie. So I went in with fairly high hopes on this one, and it didn't disappoint at all. It was so well done, and there was always an undercurrent of darkness to everything that was happening throughout it. Even though it was set in the south of America, it was bright and sunny. Like, if you were a cinematographer, everything's got an orangey, yellowy tint to it because that's the era of America. But there was just this undercurrent of darkness through it. Throughout, you could always know there was something was not quite right in this world. Just really well made. I properly enjoyed this one. Again, I think it might have been 10, 12 episodes of just this murder mystery slowly unraveling, but it was just an incredible, incredible TV show. At no point did you ever want them to rush to the end and find out who the killer was. You just wanted to enjoy the ride, and there's a lot of vibes over actual events, which doesn't always work for me, but it absolutely did in this because they played it to perfection. Really enjoyed this one.
It sounds a bit like The Killing. Did you ever watch that? Killing.
The Killing. Who's in it? Is
The guy who was in RoboCop.
Joel Kinnaman.
Yeah.
That one. I didn't.
You'd
It's on my Netflix watch list because it's the Swedish, the Scandi noir, is it? If I remember it right.
it's one of the few where it doesn't seem like it's just a remake. Where we had the tunnel, which is just the beach. That was The Killing seemed perfectly natural for that part of America that it was based in. Everything seemed realistic, and it sounds very similar to what you've just said.
Okay. Yeah, it very well could be. I think you would enjoy Sharp Objects.
Yeah, I've had it now. It's because I like The Killing. I think it sounds exactly like that. I've had that Amy Adams is 51 years old. She's outrageous.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for Night Bitch. Can't wait for it. Should be great fun. Like, it's going to be nonsense, but I'm really looking forward to it. I love Amy Adams. I don't feel like she's got her flowers over the last few years. Like, she did the Muppets and the whole Superman-y Lois Lane stuff, and I think the Lois Lane of it all sort of killed her momentum a little bit, unfortunately. I think she's a fucking great actor, so I'll sing her praises any day.
Snyder curse. That's what it is.
It is. Your 3, please, Stu.
I mean, this is one that you have seen because we've talked about it before. Mayor of Easttown, which very much fits in this exact same conversation. Gritty, what would you say? Damaged woman?
Yeah, that's a perfect description of it, yeah.
Damaged female detective, grisly murder, weird accent, which is apparently correct, from Philadelphia. It's exactly the kind of TV that you watch at this time of year before Christmas, like October-ish, where it's proper fall kind of thing. And I presume that's when I watched it a couple of years ago. Because I
think that's when it was out. It does feel very much a fall kind of a TV show.
Yeah, because it was advertised during football on a Sunday, so I would have added it to the list, and it was because it'd been HBO as well, so you'd see the quality's there already.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just exceptional, and the fact that you've got Guy Pearce on TV, Kate Winslet on TV is bad enough.
Yeah.
But to get good people, I mean, we've got this. We mentioned this before about TV actors, and this was mentioned then, and it kind of counts in both games because it's an exceptional series, and I don't want to do another one. Leave her alone.
No, I was reading about it before because I remember a couple of weeks ago they did say that they were looking at doing a season 2 of it, and I don't really want a season 2, but it turns out that Craig Zobel, the series director, he's offered HBO a new series, so he's going to be giving them something different because he doesn't want to tread on the legacy of Mayor of Easttown. So I kind of respect that he's saying, I've got something else that you can have and it'll be just as good.
And this is
And look-
Mare as in horse, not Maya.
Yes, Mare. I was going to say though, Jean Smart is also in this, and like she's appeared in a couple of other things that I've mentioned on mine as well. Jean Smart kind of feels like she's US serious TV royalty, throwing like the 24 as well. There's just something about Jean Smart in the series. You think, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. There's just something that she brings a gravitas to it, and she's great in this as Mare's mother. And I thought she was great. Really enjoyed it. Have you seen Mayor of Easttown, Ed?
No, but I've just looked it up and that this is all a bit of me. This just read the synopsis, and sometimes with these like thrillers or murder mysteries, you only need one, don't you? Because then it's its own little story, isn't it? Like a book.
Yeah.
Kate Winslet on the small screen, you know, it's going to be an exceptional performance for however many episodes. I don't think she does. She could probably read the dictionary and make it interesting. So, you know,
She's
that
one of
alone,
my favourites.
she's incredible.
Yeah, it's well worth your time, I think. And you've got it right. Like, Damon, I love Only Murders in the Building. It's great fun. How many times can you tell that same story of you could quite easily just do it as one book into a series and that's done. You don't need to revisit the same characters time and again. And I think that's what works with like Sharp Objects that I mentioned before, and this is that it's a complete story beginning to end, and you don't need to keep going back over the old ground. Your number 3, please, Ed.
So I think this might be the one that Stu would contest, is my guess. But I've gone for and I'll use a quote to sum it all up. One of the best lines that I remembered verbatim, and I was right with it. We're sorry to bother you, miss. We would have been here earlier, but your husband wasn't dead then. Police squad. Yep. I know it. So I was ready to argue that because one of the rules was it wasn't spawned from something else, but this came from Airplane and Leslie Nielsen and everyone from there, and all the what's his face, David and Jerry Zucker and Jim Abrahams, and then it went into Naked Gun and all the different thirds and the second, the halves. But this is just, I couldn't believe it was only 6 episodes, because I swear, like the Fawlty Towers thing, that I can remember 5 or 6 extra storylines that just I'm either made up or they're just jokes within the, and it's just the gag rate on these episodes is just ludicrous, isn't it? And you know, you've only got to, if you pop it into Google, you get various different mashups of supercuts of the best lines. You know, Leslie Nielsen getting out a packet of cigarettes and saying cigarette, and the lady goes, yes it is, and he puts it away. You know, it's just brilliant one-liners like that you just and I don't know about you guys, but this feels a bit like British humour as well.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that to be derogatory, because there are loads of American comedies that I find funny, but this is like, there's a dry spoof humour to this that's like, because you kind of get it with Austin Powers, but also he's like English but Canadian.
Yeah.
But his parents are English, or at least his mom's from Liverpool, isn't she? So like there's that English British humour that Mike Myers has, but this is just the one-liners in it is brilliant. And if anyone's never seen the locksmith joke, it's worth just googling that. It's a 30-second scene, and it's pure comedy. And of course, the writers behind this, you know, without that, they do both Hot Shots movies, one of them's a writer in basketball. So if you're a fan of South Park, cinematography, it's just, and obviously the Naked Gun series, it's all silly, spoof fun. It's just, it's wonderful, and it's not serious. And you, like I say, the gag rate alone, because some of them probably aren't that funny, but because you're still giggling over the last one, it's just you continue into the next one. It's just a brilliant.
That's exactly it,
It's just
isn't
a
it?
brilliant little chuckle fest, isn't it?
Because you can see, you can kind of pan the timeline. You go from the Monty Python parrot sketch to Four Candles and things like that, and it's exactly the same kind of realm, which it doesn't feel American whatsoever.
Yeah, Americans don't really do pun humor, do they? Like, there's nothing I
Not
think
like
about-
this.
No, they don't ever seem to do jokes about language in the way that I think they're British do. So to say that it feels a British show is exactly it. And it's kind of weird because Leslie Nielsen was a super serious actor and then did just some of the best comedic performances you've ever seen. Maybe that's because he was a super serious actor that once he then did comedy, it made it all the funnier because it was almost unexpected. I don't know, but brilliant.
Again, Leslie Nielsen's half British, isn't he? His mom's Welsh.
Oh, I didn't
So
know
I wonder if that's part of it. He's Canadian, Leslie Nielsen, rather than American. And I only just looking into this yesterday and today when I've been doing this for the podcast, I didn't realize his mom's Welsh and his dad's, I think, Canadian, but he's of some kind of Scandi. That's where the Nielsen comes through. Normally Danish, I think. Nielsen, isn't it? Known footballers. Yeah. So I think maybe that's where it comes from. It's rooted in his performances of being able to provide that sort of deadpan, not to giggle all the way through it. I don't know how they do it.
And this is what. It's why I'm kind of enthusiastic about Liam Neeson doing it, because they're very similar, and we've seen him do it before.
Yeah, because I think when Leslie Nielsen never told a joke and then smirked at his own gag, he told it with a deadpan face that it was the most serious thing that he's ever said, and that worked. And I know that I've shared it on Twitter. The episode of Life's Too Short with Warwick Davis, Ricky Gervais, Stephen Merchant, where Liam Neeson goes and the full-blown AIDS thing is genuinely one of the funniest things I've ever seen, because at no point does his face crack. Like, he thinks that he's been right on, this is exactly how he should be acting, and it makes it all the funnier because it's so wrong. So part of me is kind of hopeful that this isn't going to be an absolute clusterfuck of a film. I hope I'm not wrong on this one. I really hope he knocks it out of the park, because we've been starved of good slapstick humour for a long, long time.
The last one probably were Austin Powers, probably, right?
I think so, because I think the scary movies are dog shit. I don't think any of them have been any good. The first one wasn't particularly funny. The best jokes come in 3 and 4, which were David Zucker. So that's obviously a direct link back to Airplane and someone who knows what he's doing. I don't find those two Wayans brothers, I don't find to be particularly funny. I like Damon Wayans. I think he's great. But Marlon and
the other one.
The other one. I can't even remember his name.
Damien.
Yeah.
Damon, nothing like that.
No, Damon's the funny one.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the one who was in My Wife and Kids and The Last Boy Scout with Bruce Willis, going back some. But yeah, the Wayans brothers had their own TV show on like Nickelodeon kind of thing. And shit, I don't like them. I don't find them funny. And I think it's their version that is getting the Scary Movie 6 treatment. As much as I like Anna Faris, I just don't want to see it, if I'm honest. I've noticed on Twitter and TikTok and stuff, the meme of when she's talking to the little Japanese boy and she says hello and the boy doesn't respond. And then she says hello and he responds.
Yeah. Oh,
but
dear.
That meme is doing like she talks to him by like Benny Hanna, just saying like Japanese words at him like it's an actual conversation, but it's just Benny Hanna, Hyundai, coyote, like proper barrel scratch. I mean, that's just fucking racism. Let's be perfectly honest.
Although
It's not a gag. It's just racism.
I will say that when Alana went to Japan, was that over the summer? Was it? Was it? Oh no, it was last year. Well, just before Christmas last year, and obviously she's learning Japanese now. My niece, sorry. And she went there, and she knew a bit, and obviously from what she picked up through anime, where she said there were some times where she had to do the voice, and she had to speak English with a kind of Japanese accent, and they understood it. Because, but it kind of makes sense if you think of it. You're like, well, if you're being taught English by a Japanese person, it's going to have a bit of an inflection. Like if you taught French by Arsene Wenger, it's like you go over there, you're going to speak in a certain way. It does make sense.
I suppose, like, if you think about if a person who doesn't speak English learns English by a Cockney versus someone from Liverpool,
Yeah.
there's going to be a difference between the two, I suppose.
Like Alexander Isak.
Yeah, it's a bit all over the place, isn't it?
Peter Schmeichel's Danish, but he sounds like he's from Salford, doesn't he? So
Yeah, 100.
And Jan Molby.
Right, so number 2 for me, like, there's every chance this might move up to number 1 at some point, but it's so recent that the Penguin has to remain at number 2 for now. I was hopeful that this was going to be good, but this has exceeded all of my expectations for it. I think Colin Farrell has been absolutely incredible in this. He's an actor, I think, that as time has gone on, he's just gone up and up in my estimation. Like, I always thought he was fine, and then actually, no, you're not fine, you're good. And over the last few years, I'm like, you're one of the best. You're absolutely tremendous. And as Oz Cobb, he's phenomenal. He's a horrible bastard who you still sort of root for, even though you shouldn't. He's so good in this. Christina Milioti as the Hangman, playing one of the Falcones. You've also got the other crime family from Gotham, whose name escapes me. You've got all of the... Yes, that's the one. You've got all of the ongoing issues of the mob scene within Gotham. So it's not really about the Batman and all that stuff, even though it is set in the Batman universe. It's much more grounded. There's none of the, like when Bruce Wayne falls out the top of that building and flies 30 yards. There's none of the silliness with this one. This could just be a mob show, to be perfectly honest. It did draw comparisons to Sopranos, and you can see why when you've watched it. It does have that level of gritty realism to it. Absolutely tremendous television. So yeah, you've got Sophia Falcone, Salvatore Marone's in this. It is about Penguin building up his reputation. But you've also got this lad who he just takes under his wing, Vic, who is just like the sweetest kid that you don't want to see corrupted by this world. You kind of fall in love with this lad because he's such a sweet innocent in it all. And the way that the mob scene changes him and Oz Cobb's rise to fill this vacuum that has been left with the death and the floods and everything that happened in Gotham. I don't want to say too much because obviously it's only just finished like a week ago, and I know Stu hasn't seen it at this point, so I don't want to spoil anything. It's special, this is. There's a couple of episodes I think have got like a 9.7 on IMDb. They're like 2 of the highest rated episodes of any TV show that have ever been done. And it's worth it. It is worth it. It is that damn good. Incredible TV.
Yeah, I watched the Batman again last week. So I'd only ever seen it once, and that was in the cinema, and I remember being very impressed at the time. And this being set a week after, it was like, well, I need to watch it again because I don't really remember it. And then I watched it, and I kind of did. But that was a great film, and not even the whole Nirvana thing and all the nonsense that came with it. It was a genuinely really good film, and it was better than I remembered it being. So yeah, so to hear Penguin's the same high quality, it's not a surprise really. But is he only going to be one series? That's the thing.
Yeah, he said that he's doing one series of this, and then apparently there might be another series about another villain in the future, but it'll only be one of Oscorp. I mean, let's be honest, these things don't always turn out that way. But as it stands, that is currently the plan. There was a rumor during the reigns about a Joker Barry Keoghan series, but it seems like James Gunn has shot that down. I don't think they'll be introducing Joker in the next film either, to be honest, from what I can tell. It looks like it's going to be Frost, and Oscorp will have a few bits and bobs in it as well. I don't think they're going to go too far with the Joker, and just keep him in the background, I think. I mean, we've said it before, he's the big bad that everyone wants, so just keep him on the hook and keep people interested.
Yeah,
What's going on, dude? What's it on? Because this is a bit of me, this.
Atlantic.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think it's HBO series, so again, it's got that stamp of quality you just expect. But yeah, it's well worth checking out. Stu number 2, please.
I mean, this for a long time was my number one favorite TV show ever. And I don't want to watch it again because just for the slight hint that it might not be as good as I remember it being. But having seen it through 3 times in the space of 10 years, Firefly is immaculate. And it's a travesty that it was only 14 episodes. It's an absolute disgrace. Considering all the shit that was on telly at that time as well. The fact that they made something like this, which is basically a Western. It's like, to say it's Star Wars, grounded Star Wars, is a bit of a disservice, really, because it's not. Being in space is not really the point, is it? It's more about the characters itself.
It's effectively a Western. It's just
Yeah.
the setting of it, which I suppose is kind of Star Warsy as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more like Deadwood than Star Wars, but with a bit more levity to it. And we obviously, Nathan Fillion is excellent in everything at all
We
times.
do love Nathan Fillion.
But it's her. If she got it cancelled, we all know this. This is the reason. The Summer Glow curse.
One of the most beautiful people I have seen in the flesh. Like, when you just see a human being and you're like, you're angelic, like you glow. So that was Summer Glow.
When I met Matt Guy outside the mall, I knew that one time.
Did you have arthritis in your knees before you met her though?
I probably did, to be fair.
Just this
No, on IMDb, I did not realise it had that higher rating.
It's beloved. It's beloved by everyone who see it. I mean, I'm kind of half surprised it hasn't got a Lego set, because it's one of them things that's niche enough that if you can get I mean, I know June 2 especially is the film of the year without a shadow of a doubt. The June Ornithopter thing with the blades, that looks a bit like a fly, but it's a helicopter. That thing is 170 quid and it's massive. But if that can have one, why can't we have a Firefly ship? Why? Give us Serenity.
It's incredible looking at the cast list on this, to be fair. So Nathan Fillion, like, he's in everything geeky that everybody loves. Alan Tudyk, exactly the same. Raina Baccarin, she's got a history in this. Jewel State as well. Summer Glow. Christina Hendricks. Like, it's such a fucking tremendous cast. Zac Efron was in an episode, apparently. I don't remember that. It's been a long time since I've seen. Yeah, he played young Simon. I don't know who that is, but yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it. Tremendous show. I don't actually know why it was cancelled. I don't know what the reasoning was behind it. I don't know why they ever didn't continue with it. I know obviously the film came in and the film absolutely smashed it, because that was tremendous as well.
Yeah, it was rating. It was just, from what I remember at the time, it was just ratings. Because it had a niche audience. It probably cost a bit more than everything else did. When you could, like, what was that? That show that was set in it had a game as well as being a show. I'm trying to think what it was now. It was saying, is it the New Orleans Arch or St. Louis Arch? It was set around there. I can not think of what it's called. But that was proper sci-fi schlock, and that had a massive following as well. It had an MMO game attached to it, and there was me on my own who watched that, but he was not good enough to go on this list.
Is it Starfield?
No, Starfield wishes it was this.
I don't know why I'm thinking of. I keep thinking of Counterpart, but I assume it's not that. That's the only like proper sci-fi nonsense I can remember with J.K. Simmons. No, I don't know what it could be.
So doing this
Defiance.
Doing this list, I obviously Googled. I wrote down 3 that I knew were definitely one series, and then thought I'm going to need some help. So I Googled, and Firefly was either 1, 2, or 3, and every single one of these lists, and I'd never heard of it. And then when you look at the cast and what's his face alone, the bloke out of Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, Nathan Fillion. It's like I've watched everything I think he's in, and I've never heard of this. So it's on Amazon Prime. So it's along with that last one with Kate Winslet. It's I'm making my own list after starting to come on here slightly more regularly. So it's something to pick up, and the Penguin.
I'm genuinely stunned you'd not heard of Firefly before. Was this pre or post Buffy, Joss Whedon, Stu?
It was after. It's got to have been.
Was it? Okay.
Buffy was the 90s.
The only
early 90s.
The only thing I can think of is it's 2002, 2003. It's when I'm finishing college, going to university, and probably for the first time ever going out drinking rather than watching TV. That's probably why. It's probably because I got some kind of life outside the house for the first time ever.
In fairness, I don't even remember it being on British TV. I saw this years later on DVD.
Yeah,
because it was one of those where everyone was raving about it, and I was like, well, I need to see it now. And yeah, so it might have been because that period of time was American TV as prevalent over here. Something like a niche American TV, should I say? Would that be as prevalent? I don't know.
No, because you'd have things, you'd have things like Xena on a Saturday afternoon on BBC One. That's probably a bit as far as you go with that kind of thing.
And don't forget, we'd often get things months, if not years later. And this show ran for 14 episodes and was cancelled. So
yeah,
there's every chance that it just wasn't picked up, because why would you bother if you're a TV station?
But Channel 5 probably wasn't very big at that point either.
Yeah.
I watched Breaking Bad season 1 on Channel 5 in the middle of the night.
Yeah, me too.
And because people have been talking about it on the radio. This show that's sweet, and that's what happened with 24 as well on BBC Two. People have been talking about 24, and obviously because of Kiefer Sutherland's in it, you're going to watch it anyway, especially at that time. But that was again word of mouth, and it was like okay, and then Sky stole it and whatever. Yeah, that's what, you put these random things on and hope to get a hit, and that never got a chance. Defiance went for 3 seasons on Sci-Fi. It's got. It was about a terraformed Earth, so they were living amongst aliens as well. 7 on IMDb. So it's
okay.
It's as nerdy as you can possibly get.
I don't even recognise any of the cast. I've never heard of it, Stu. It's a new one on me, that one, mate. Oh, okay. Interesting. Right. Ed, you're number 2 before we do some honourable mentions, please.
Yeah, so again, this is, whether or not you call it a mini-series, but it's because I'm an incredible Beatles nerd, and they are my favourite band of all time and will be. It's Get Back. Beatles. 3 episodes, random timings for each one, breaking down their last few days really together as a band. And if you're into them or not, it is like it's porn for Beatles fans. They're falling out, then they start playing music again, and they realise they still love doing that. You know, it culminates with them on the rooftop, which is spoofed brilliantly in The Simpsons. Probably the only thing that's better than the real version is that by the B Sharps. You know, we see Yoko, the fucking bitch who ruined everything. we see George and Ringo, which, you know, when everyone talks about the Beatles, it's always John and Paul, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we see George having his strops because he's, you know, for me, does the best solo stuff after the Beatles. His albums for me are better, and he doesn't do Wings, so he automatically is better than Paul McCartney. You know, and we see his weird Hare Krishna friends. No offense to anyone. And we have these random people turn up. Peter Sellers turns up. We see the incredible Billy Preston come and play the organ. It's just, like I say, it's just if you're a Beatles geek, it's just 6 hours or so of just pure Beatles mania that no one had seen before, or very, very little of it, because it was in an archive somewhere and then finally gets found. And we see Ringo playing drums with Paul's adopted daughter. You know, we have wonderful moments like that. It's a brilliant, if you haven't watched it, it's worth a watch. And if you're into the Beatles in any way, shape or form, you probably already have.
I don't even think if you're necessarily into the Beatles that much, as a weird time capsule, and the quality of the film as well, and how whatever wizardry they use to keep the tape as good as this over this amount of time, and then restore it like they have, it's masterful work.
Yeah,
it's almost like the stuff, or the BBC stuff that he did with the around World War One and all that kind of stuff. That was excellent as well. But yeah, when I like the Beatles, I don't love them, but love me do, whatever. It was right there. Yeah, totally done. But yeah, I was engrossed by it. I didn't move. And I always said this at the time when it came out, and it was like, you just can't take your eyes off it. There's just something about seeing behind the scenes footage when that wasn't a thing. Exactly like I saw about Jerry Anderson earlier. This stuff has been done because it's the Beatles rather than a strange man playing with puppets. It's a work of art, that series. So it never crossed my mind either, which is annoying.
I never got a chance to get round to these. I think it wasn't out at Christmas 21, and it was just a case of I was so busy, and it's like 7+ hours, I think, because each episode, as you say, there's one episode that's 2 hours, and then 2.5, and then 3 hours. It's a little bit of, you need the time to sit and devote to it. I've seen the trailers. The footage is just stunning. Like, in no world would I ever believe that was a 1969 filmed footage. I mean, I've seen some images from the recent Blair Witch HD conversion that they're doing that's going to be released next year at some point. And they've upgraded it since, what was it, 99, was it, Stu? Blair Witch, yeah?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're looking at that versus something that was 30 years earlier, and that looks 10 times better than what they're doing with Blair Witch. And Blair Witch looks good. This just looks pristine. It's just incredible. Well, it definitely works. I'd got a couple of possible docu-series, but I just ended up shying away from them in the end, because that could probably be a list on its own, to be honest. But yeah, definitely works.
Because you only have to look at like some of the outside broadcast stuff for like Fawlty Towers when they go out to the studio, and it's very blatantly obvious they're outside because it looks awful. It looks crap.
And you hear the wind in the background and everything.
And yet this looks pristine somehow. Bizarre. Probably AI.
It would have been, because it would have been the best of the best of the best, because they were bigger than Jesus, to quote John himself. So it would have been, and they were filming a documentary that never was released. That was the whole point, wasn't it? So it would have been the best that was available at the time, and it's just been it's stored somewhere where it's been in someone's cupboard, hasn't it? It's never seen daylight and couldn't have got ruined or overexposed.
Yeah. Have you seen 8 Days a Week, the touring years, the Ron Howard film of the
No.
Beatles? It's brilliant. Really, really good. Yeah.
I like Ron Howard too, so
Yeah. So it's just footage from like some of their concerts and stuff, but hey, it's Ron Howard, so you know it's going to be well made. Yeah, excellent.
You know, I was thinking of Ron Jeremy then.
very different film.
Yeah, I had to double check I was getting the right name just in case I said Ron Jeremy.
So that's 8 Days of Wank, probably.
Yeah, excellent.
That's it. That's it. Honorable mentions then. Right, I've got a couple. Prison Break, because that first season's brilliant, and then nothing happened afterwards. Because why would you need anything more than that first season? The couple of docuseries that nearly made my list: The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan one.
Yeah, that's on mine too.
Just tremendous. It's rare that Netflix put out a show weekly that becomes appointment viewing, let alone for it to be a documentary that was appointment viewing. Absolutely tremendous work. Another documentary I've got is Cosmos, the 1980 Carl Sagan astronomy series. Like, that was when they used to talk to people like they were actual human beings and not fucking idiots.
Have you seen the
Brilliant.
Neil deGrasse Tyson new one of that from about
I've
5
seen-
years ago?
I haven't seen all of it. I've seen some of it, and it is good.
It's really
It's
good.
not Carl Sagan, though. That's the
No.
difference. Is Carl Sagan is the greatest. Like, he almost makes me believe in a god because he's just such a perfect scientist that he's just brilliant. And then I've got Sprung, which is from the creator of My Name Is Earl TV series. I think it's 12 episodes of comedy. It's set during the pandemic. They let some prisoners out. They get sprung from prison, basically. And it's just about them trying to reintegrate back into life. It's got Garrett Dillahunt in. I love Garrett Dillahunt and Martha Plimpton. So it's good fun. That's worth a watch. And the other one I've got is Jury Duty. One man is called up to serve on a jury, but he doesn't realise that everybody, all the other jurors, the person in the dock, the judge, everyone's an actor. He's the only real person who's having to do it. And he just sort of gets pushed to the forefront of doing everything, even though he's really uncomfortable with it. And he's such a sweet, adorable human being. And they're all just dicks to him. And it's great. It's just really good fun. It's kind of uncomfortable comedy at times, but it's brilliant.
Sounds like
That was a show that was on Freevee, the channel that is now being shut down by Amazon.
That sounds like a Derren Brown experiment / The Truman Show.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, it sort of is. I think if you like Jury Duty, you'll probably like Nathan Fielder's stuff as well. He's got something called The Rehearsal that was getting to rerun moments of your life. But again, just really fucking weird comedy that you'll either love or hate. And The Curse, that I think you both might really hate, but I loved it. It's A24. So like, it's really normal and hard and weird, and then it gets really, really weird at the end. I want you to watch it, but I don't think you'll like it. Emma Stone's in it though, so it is worth a watch. Yeah. So that's my honorable mentions. Stu, you got anything?
I mean, I'm just thinking of the Curse.
I
So-
think you'd hate it. I really think you will not like it.
Strange. Well,
It's loved and hated in it.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be. I mean, there's enough strange films that we've seen in the last few years, but I can easily have seen myself hating The Substance about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I very much enjoyed that film. But special mentions. I mean, I know now what Ed's number one is, and that would have been on my list other than Issues. You probably forgot about it. The criminally underrated DC TV show Constantine.
I've got that on my list, but it was a great show. It had no reason to get cancelled after one season. I'm so glad that they then folded him into Legends of Tomorrow. It was brilliant, and Matt Ryan was the perfect choice.
Yeah. And it worked perfectly, and he wasn't too scared, so that's always the best way. The Alien Nation series, which probably doesn't count because it came off the film.
Don't even remember that shit.
You know, the Alien Nation, though.
The James Caan film.
You're the one with they got little spots on the heads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I do remember the series. Yeah. I never saw it, to be fair, but yeah,
It was all
did
right.
vaguely
It's
recall it.
very. I remember really enjoying it at the time. Maybe I think that was pre-Channel 5. Terra Nova.
Hated it. It's the one with the dinosaurs, the Spielberg one.
Yes.
Went 20 minutes and gave up. That was shit.
See, it's too heartfelt, wasn't it? Too heartfelt. Dinosaurs, portals. It's nice. Nice one. But again, that.
I remember, wasn't it like the most expensive pilot episode at the time?
Yeah.
And it looked dreadful. Like the CG was wank. I didn't enjoy it at all.
It got better as it went along. But it was. I remember I was watching that when we had the big earthquake. Not big. Big by our standards.
Big for Dudley, right?
Yeah. The Dudley earthquake when when one of my pint glasses fell. So I used to have a collection of pint glasses on the top of my wardrobes. And I used to take them down every week and swill them out so they glistened. It was amazing. But they all fell down the Dudley earthquake when I was watching Terra Nova. I was very, very annoyed about that.
I was going through that earthquake, and I at the time I was about 2 miles away from the epicenter. Slept through the whole thing, missed still.
Yeah, I was about 2 miles from it when I used to live on Milking Bank at the time.
Yeah, I was in
Literally at the top of the Himley Road. But it was, I'm sure it was like the Royal Rumble or something was on, so I was up watching the wrestling that night. Some things never change.
I got one more, which was, again, it's really well worth watching because, and it's weird because it was filmed and then held for reasons because it's Station 11. And it was based on a book series, and it's basically a respiratory virus decimates the world, and it's the apocalypse afterwards.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. But it was being made during that time, and then COVID happened, and they had to stop production on that show because it happened.
Fucking hell.
Wow.
Mackenzie Davis, Himesh Patel. Yes, please. I'm in with that one.
It's superb.
Super. Ed, have you got any honourable mentions?
Well, I think we mentioned a couple. So Baby Reindeer. It was good, but it doesn't deserve to be near this list. I think it got a lot of. It was just weird, wasn't it? There was bits in it that was just too weird, even for me. And the only other one that I think hasn't been mentioned, and touching on Stu's Captain Scarlet Shout, The Visionaries. Did you ever watch that?
Oh yeah,
love The Visionaries.
Knights of the Magical Light.
Yeah,
one series. There was
like
like 13 or 14 episodes, and it stopped. Brilliant. It's on most of the episodes are on YouTube, and I have watched them. Gone back, and yeah, no one normally has heard of it, but it's a normally it's a I'm with friends right now, so that my kind of people. But yeah, for those that don't know, it's a time where magic takes over from technology, and it's set in the future, but then also a bit in the past with castles and knights. It's a good little great
and hologram powering spaceships. But it's weird, but yeah, it's great.
Yeah, magical staffs, and people turn into the blue lions and mollusks and stuff. But it's great. But they were the only two I've got left, because the other two I had was The Last Dance, where we find out that Michael Jordan's a psychopath.
The thing I remember, like Visionaries, it's one of those shows, a bit like Jace and the Wheeled Warrior, that you either know it's like that was the best thing ever, or you've got absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
And again, I know that one too. But the Visionaries is brilliant. Had it on video back in the day.
Oh yeah, I had the VHS as well.
I mean, Biker Mice from Mars was better than Jason and Wheel Warriors.
Yeah, it was. Biker Mice.
I never really watched. I played the game of the Biker Mice from Mars, but I never really watched the series. Bucky O'Hare, that was another one I loved. I had all of the figures, and even the. Oh god, what was the name of the spaceship they had? I can't remember.
Red Wing. I don't know.
Yeah, The righteous,
You know what I
the
mean?
righteous indignation. I'm sure it was called the righteous indignation. Yeah, great. I'm sure like it was a really high up comic book creator created the
Dead
Blood
Eye
Hell.
Duck.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I've got that on DVD somewhere as well. Great stuff. Loved it. Right then, at number ones. So mine is in a bit of a running theme because I think, right, I've got one Netflix and then the rest have all been HBO. And it's another HBO TV series called The Night Of. This might have been the first time I saw Riz Ahmed in anything. I'm pretty sure it was the first time I saw Michael Kenneth Williams in anything. John Turturro's in this as well, who I'm a massive fan of. Purna Jagannathan is also in it. It's a gripping crime drama that delves into the complexities of the criminal justice system in I'm sure it's New York or Chicago. Actually, I can't quite remember. America anyway. The story centers around Riz Ahmed's character. He goes on a night out and then he ends up spending the night with this young lady. He wakes up and she is dead. Riz Ahmed's character then gets arrested and it is everything, all the machinations that go on, and it's all the lives of Riz Ahmed and Michael Kenneth Williams who are in the prison. You've got John Turturro who plays his lawyer. You've also got to deal with his family as well. And it's just everything that is circling around, and there's just this brewing storm throughout it. If I remember correctly, there's only 5 episodes. And again, it is such an intense 5-episode run. It is absolutely incredible. This might have been, was it 8? I didn't think it had even gone that long. I knew it was on the shorter side of it. This might have even been the first time I really remember HBO being a thing for me as well. Like, I'm sure it's been there forever and a day, but you know, from my recollection, this was the first HBO being the king of TV. And this was the thing that started the ball rolling for me. It's an incredibly thought-provoking TV show. It deals with all kinds of issues like the race relations. You've got the impact that the criminal justice system has at every level on the innocent and the guilty, the charged and the not charged, how everybody's influenced and how everyone is impacted. Just incredible. I love Riz Ahmed. I think he's an absolutely great actor. And this might have been the first time I even saw him in anything and immediately think you'll want to watch whatever you do now. Just brilliant stuff.
You know, when you just said that, I mean, I've never heard of this. I'll watch that now. But 6 Feet Under, I know you said this before. 6 Feet Under was out in 2001. And I watched that. That must have been one of the early Sky One collaborations with them. Because you look who's actually in 6 Feet Under. Michael C. Hall.
Yep.
who obviously, Francis Conroy, who I know you love anyway. Andy. Freddie Rodriguez.
The name rings a bell.
Yeah, he's one of them faces. Rachel Griffiths as well. It's 6 Feet Under, 8.7 on IMDb. It's amazing. But I think it's before the HBO boom, which kind of just proves the point. That was the first one for me that I thought, oh, what is this? What do these letters mean? What is home box office? It doesn't mean fuck all to us. But it was on Sky and it was all new and fancy and that title card and everything. Yeah, 2001. 23 years ago.
It's depressing, isn't it?
No.
But yeah, from what I know of both of you, I think you'd both enjoy The Night Of. I think it's good, gritty crime drama. Great stuff. Stu, what have you got for your number 1?
Nice and cheerful, really. Is this HBO as well?
I think it might be.
I think it is. It's Chernobyl.
Yeah, I knew that's what you were going to say.
I mean, who knew that they could create such a work of art from something so awful? And the fact that you go, Chernobyl walls is a kind of throwaway thing that we use every week. And I'll put that image up with the logo on the side of the reactor. But to do what they did with that show, he had no right being as good as it was. So even if it was 2 episodes and you think, okay, well, what are you going to do? You concentrate on the families. It's not going to work. But to get it as spot on as it was, to be one of those shows where you think, okay, we all know how this ends. This is not going to be like Titanic, and yet it works out so perfectly. It's just an absolute masterpiece. I mean, I don't care what it's on. If it's a game, it's a film, bit of music maybe, but to be a TV show and pull this off, just class.
5 episodes long, and
Yeah.
I don't. Each episode, so we've got a 9.4, 9.6, 9.5, 9.3, 9.8.
Yeah.
To have nothing dip below a 9 on IMDb is just astounding. I love Jessie Buckley. I think she's one of the best sort of up and coming, and I know she's been around a little while, but I think she's tremendous. Jared Harris was phenomenal in that. Stella Skarsgård, I nearly called him Stella Skateboard then. Awesome. Paul Ritter, it's awesome. Just jaw dropping, I think, is the only way I can describe how great that series was.
I think there's a strength in the fact that it's only 5 episodes as well. Doesn't drag it out to the point where you get bored because you know the ending. I think that's a really clever way of doing it. It's gripping throughout, isn't it? And it doesn't outstay its welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Ed, your number 1, please.
So yeah, my number 1 is Band of Brothers, 2001. Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks, piggybacking off the back of Saving Private Ryan. I don't do war films or war stuff. Not for the same reasons as you, Andy. I find World War I and II really difficult because they're just normal blokes and it's normal people, and it gets me in on an emotional level. But it's wonderful from start to finish. You follow the company, Easy Company, from their training all the way through to the emancipation of Austria, I want to say. You see the Normandy landings. They land on Utah Beach, which was the first beach that was raided. So they were there from the start of Normandy. So I think it's 2 years, 42 to 44. It's obviously got a stellar cast. You've got David Schwimmer. You've got Damian Lewis, the ginger bloke. You even got Dexter Fletcher from Bugsy Malone and from Games Master back in the 90s. So it's a stellar cast. It's brilliantly written. It doesn't glamorize war in a way that you think an American production could as well, which is interesting. It's very gritty, very real. The characters are based on it's one of those that says based on true events. So it's based on a book written by a guy that was leading Easy Company. So necessarily most of the incidents that you come across are real. And what happens to the characters is real. And talking about the ending, talked about the endings and not some of them not being where we want them. The ending on this is brilliantly real because some of them have done enough to go home because they've racked up enough miles, racked enough years. Some of them die. Some of them get severely injured and go home. And then some of them just carry on for the next year because they haven't ticked it off yet to go back. So you watch them all the way through. You lose a few. You gain a few new characters, but it's brilliant. It's 10 episodes. And yeah, I struggle through it every now and again just to rewatch them because I do struggle with war stuff, but it's worth it.
It's the how they have the real people there as well, who the characters are based on as talking heads at the start of the episode, and then it cuts back to me. I've watched it through twice, and it feels so new. It feels so modern, yet again, he's 23 years old. You'd never in a million years think that, because he does. It's wonderfully well made, and it's done. It's not like you said. I think that sums it up properly. It's not glamorizing anything. It's documenting it, and by doing that, it makes it all the more real.
Yeah.
But it's the only reason I didn't do it was because of the Pacific being a thing and then being linked.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't.
But it probably doesn't even count because they are kind of sister shows, really. Just it is what it is. But yeah, and yeah, we say that Andy don't like war films, but he kind of does, and he's accepted it now. it doesn't even matter what this is based on. It's just one of them things you just need to watch.
Yeah.
Because I've got nothing to add to like Band of Brothers itself, I'm going to recommend Dead Eyes podcast. One guy who was supposed to be in Band of Brothers, but then got cut like right at I think it was like the day of shooting. He started a podcast. He overheard Tom Hanks, who I think directed an episode. Tom Hanks cut him because he said he had dead eyes, and that's the name of this podcast. Is him trying to figure out why he was cut from Band of Brothers, and it sort of culminates with him having a sit down with Tom Hanks. Really good. I think there's only like 35 episodes of this podcast. It's well worth a listen to. Very good. The other thing I was going to recommend, because you mentioned Games Master, on YouTube, there's something called Rose Tinted Spectrum, and they've done a series. They've done 3 parts to a Games Master retrospective. So part 1 is season 1. Parts 2 and 3 are the first half and second half of season 2. So I don't know how many more to come, because I can't remember how many episodes of Games Master they were. It's a really good, fun rewatch. Each one's like 2 hours long, but they are worth a watch. I know that's nothing to do with Band of Brothers, but you mentioned Games Master, so if you like Games Master, it's worth a watch.
I'm never too far away from mentioning the night.
Well, it had Jet from Gladiators in a bathtub, so you can't go wrong, can you?
No.
What more do you want? Right, okay. We'll take a quick break and then we're back to talk about Astro Boy. Ed, thank you very much for joining us for this one. I hope you'll be coming back soon.
Yeah, whenever you need me.
Super. I've got an idea, because there was a poll recently about the best films of the 21st century so far. So if you're willing to come on and talk to us early next year, we'll get that one in the can.
Definitely. Get it in the calendar.
Welcome back. Astro Boy, 1952. This series apparently began as a manga anime. I don't know what you call it, but it was in 1952. This has been going forever and a day. Like, this is going to go longer than my mom. Like, it's an old thing. See, like, my mom was born in the 60s, so
That's not how that sounded. That
but like this, I'm sure in a certain part of the world, to a certain type of person, this must be enormous. But to me, I don't feel like I've had any real interaction with Astro Boy. It sort of feels like it's almost part of my general world of being a fan of animation and comic books and stuff, but it's never come into my orbit.
you could say, if you look at it and you think, oh, this must be some kind of offspin of Mega Man and something like that. Obviously, it's the other way around, really. And Mega Man obviously inspired by this. But yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? I was trying to think off the top of your head what would be, like, if I don't know, a Mr. Ben cartoon came out now and in 3D, in CG animation, and it wouldn't be massive here because no one cares, but something that old, that's the kind of thing you're talking about. And it is very bizarre how these things just don't cross over. I mean, even like when talking about an actual good thing called Astrobot, the purple hexagonal, he was in the first one as well. You had to fight him in the first one. You know, the purple polygon man.
Yeah.
Like that was never a character that we had here. Whereas over there, he had his own series and everything. And he was massive. That's why he was in that first game. And yet, you've had 30 years worth of history in one part of the world and then not in the rest. And yet, you've got A-list stars voicing these people in this film that no one's heard of. It's all very strange.
Yeah, it's proper. Like, I found this whole film kind of weird.
Mm.
And I don't know if, even though it's 2009 this film was released, it felt a lot older.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on why, because the animation and everything is clearly post Toy Story, but just the feel of it wasn't like, it felt like it could quite easily have been early to mid 90s, a bit when most animated films weren't really pitched outside of just for kids. This felt too kiddified. Like there was no depth to it outside of the, the surface level story. I don't know if I'm missing something with it, but it just, none of this film really rang true to me on any level.
I mean, there's parts of it, like especially this, because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even look, and obviously we knew he was in it. That's what we do in
Mm.
this. But that's literally all I knew. So when he died, I thought, wow, it's a bit harsh. He's been evaporated into thin air. And I thought, to start with, oh, this is all right actually. It's quite macabre and whatever. But you're building your own son back again. And then when he's rejected, I thought, oh Jesus Christ, this is a kid's film. But then he goes from that, which, I mean, it's the nice thing to have like a proper adult themes and all this kind of thing of what is a soul and all this stuff. But then you go to the surface and it turns into like Land Before Time. With all the, like, you almost imagine Petrie to kind of peak up.
Mhm.
And you got all these wastrels, and it seemed like two films slapped together to me. It felt
Yeah,
like
that's it. Yeah.
it felt like it looked like it did, obviously, because that was the way things were going at that time with certain things from over there. I think if this had actually been an anime, it would have been, and that all that bollocks
Mm.
had been left out. It would have been superb. If it had been a dark anime film,
Mm.
it would have been amazing. But it's not. It's a CG
Yeah.
film for kids with some dark shit going on, but then you've got this kind of proper like Nickelodeon comedy going on at the same time. It doesn't work.
As soon as like we met up with Matt Lucas, his character, and Eugene Levy, the sort of the weird, silly comedy bots, that it just lost it completely at that point. Because you are right, it did feel like there was a seed of something at the beginning where it could have been, as you say, quite a dark, introspective look at what it means to be human. And then we had silly robot farts. You just completely lost me at that point. And it felt like it was a little bit of struggle throughout pretty much the remainder of the film, outside of the first 20 minutes. I don't know what it was, because, I mean, I don't even remember this film being released, if I'm being perfectly honest. And say it's 2009, I probably should have remembered it, but no
Yeah.
recollection whatsoever.
Not available anywhere.
No, it wasn't the easiest to get hold of again. Maybe that tells its own story, to be fair.
Yeah, and this is not like one of them things, oh, it's an outrage why this is not available to more people, because you can understand why they'd kind of just want to shit it out and bury it, because it's not very good. It's pretty boring. And I mean, the little the bots that were cleaning the windows, the little the
The
window cleaners,
squeegee robot.
yeah.
and
So
yeah.
them two, I quite like them too. And there were little bits like that was clearly written for adults, because why else would you have a
Who else would get that reference?
window cleaner and a sponge, robot
Mm.
sponge? That was good, that was funny, but then there was bits where you had all the fart jokes and then the Nick stuff, and it just, I don't know. It's just a strange sensation watching this.
It felt very jigsaw-y. Just didn't piece together quite right. I'm kind of surprised looking at it. So the budget was 65 mil. It recouped 42 million. I would have thought with this character that's been running forever and a day, it being released obviously in the East, which generally speaking, it seems like when a film wants to make a lot of money, they pitch it towards a Far East audience. And for this to have not even made its initial budget, let alone how much they'd have spent on advertising and stuff as well, It really is a damning failure, to be perfectly honest. It's come nowhere, and maybe that's probably why it's been forgotten to the sands of time 15 years later, and it's not something that anyone really discusses.
But he could have gone the other way, though, couldn't he? Because you know how protective they are of these things, where you look at it and you think, we've got our thing, and I presume this is it's an American production, first and foremost, and then subbed over later on.
Produced by Marianne Gaga and Kazuka Yoaki. So I'm wondering if it's a bit of both.
Yeah, a bit of like a co-production kind of thing.
Potentially, yeah, because there are bits where it's distributed Pan Asia Films and Summit Entertainment. So I think it might be co-funded potentially.
Because looking at the obvious comparison to this, Ghost in the Shell, did you see the Scarlett Johansson one?
I didn't know.
Remarkably good. Yeah, I was surprised. Because you think something that beloved, they're going to fuck it up somehow.
That's why I never bothered with it.
But you look at the budget for that, $110 million. Gross worldwide, 169. So broke even. But the gross US and Canada, 40. So you've got the vast majority of that money is coming from outside of America and Canada, and not obviously not here. So it's going to be the original fans of Ghost in the Shell from over in Japan, you'd think, for that.
Yeah.
It doesn't say on IMDb where everything else came from, but when you get it right, they don't matter. But maybe this was just so shit that no one cared.
Yeah, maybe that's it, to be fair. Anything good for this one?
I mean, I did like the dark bit, like I said, the dark stuff at the start. But it just leads straight into the bad, because the bad's the rest of the film, because it's something that it doesn't know what it wants to be. Because you've got all the stuff, and like where the red thing turns into like that. Remember that Katamari? What was it called? That game where you just roll over things and you turn into a big ball. Katamari Damacy.
Yeah,
it's like that, where he was just swallowing stuff and it was getting bigger and bigger. And you think, this is just stupid now. What is going on? And like the contrast with the blue and the red, and I thought that there was nice bits in there, but it was just executed really badly.
Yeah, it felt so shallow after that initial bump. I completely agree. I think it had an okay start. It was enticing enough that I thought maybe we were going to get something here. And like, it was nice enough, the animation. I don't think it excelled, but it wasn't ugly to look at. I think they could have gone a bit further. Voice acting, we'll come to Nick eventually. What did you make of the voice acting generally? Because I felt like it was very... Bill Nighy, I thought, sounded terrible. Like, I felt like Bill Nighy was just reading a book as he was delivering his lines. And same with Matt Lucas. Like, I like Matt Lucas, and I don't feel like there was that effort. I just didn't feel that it was there.
If you'd said that this was made in 2020 and the actors had to record their own audio on iPhones and send it in, I'd completely believe you.
Yes,
that's what it was.
That's fair. Yeah.
The epitome of being found in. Terrible.
Or
every single person on this film was bad.
There's a couple of bits I thought... I didn't think Cage was terrible. Maybe that's just my bias. I don't know. There was a few bits where you felt like his delivery, he was trying to give a bit of acting to it. He was trying to take something off the page. And I thought similar for Donald Sutherland. I thought he was all right in this, but it was so few and far between. And I wouldn't say either were good, they just weren't terrible.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's skipping ahead to the good or bad. He's not good in this. No one is.
Yeah. Like, I'd feel quite harsh to say he was good when I'm saying everyone was kind of crap, because he just wasn't. It was flat, which is something we rarely can accuse Nick Cage of, because good or bad, he's never flat. but he was here, which I think is quite disappointing.
Especially when he's supposed to be a grieving dad, a mad kind of scientist, a robot genius, where he's got the perfect example of through his entire career. It's primed for crazy Cage. It's primed for being distraught, and yet there's none of it. Just a disappointment.
Yeah, it was. It was. So, did you enjoy the film? Did you watch it on your own, or did you watch it with your young'uns?
I asked both of them. Predictably, both said no. So I ended up watching it on my own. And I was just a kind of bit. I was just bored. So no, there was nothing to get mad at, which is part of the fun sometimes. It was just boring and dull and drab. And it's Christmas time. How can they do this to me? And yet, no, it didn't. Bad film.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there was nothing in this that I watched and thought, I hate this, because I didn't hate it. It was just a film that I watched this week. That's all I can say about it. There was nothing really there that would make me recommend this to anybody. It was just something that existed that, it's a box that we had to check off for this podcast. And I'm kind of glad it's out of the way now and we don't have to watch it again.
But when you compare this to Teen Titans Go to the Movies last week, how good that was. So this, it's night and day.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen this and what was the Croods. We've seen the 2 Croods films that Cage has done. We know Cage has done some decent animated films. So I was kind of hoping this was going to be fun. Yeah, it just wasn't, was it?
No.
And something that's been around this long, I kind of feel like there's probably enough there that it should have been. Because it's not going to have like 70-year shelf life and not be worthwhile.
No. Feels like we need to watch the Guinea Pig film.
Yeah, I feel like G-Force is going to be coming up. Yeah, I think that. What other films have we got that are going to be animated on Nick Cage's or not particularly live action? Let's find the list. Nick to watch. Right, okay. So I don't know if they've can you hear the fireworks they're going off here, by the way?
Yeah, just about.
They've been going off all night, constantly. So it's going to be all throughout this podcast. I think, unfortunately, I've got to the point where George is losing his hearing. So when he's in the house, he's not too bad, thankfully. It's when he's outside, he doesn't like it. Little tyke. Right, okay. So we've got Astro Boy. I can delete that one now. G-Force, The Ant Bully. I think that's the only.
That's good, that is, though. That's fun.
Well, that'll be our next 2 then. We'll watch those 2 films next with the G-Force and the Ant Bully. Next week we've got Matt's Musicast. So for the first 2 weeks of December, we'll do those 2 films, I think.
Yeah.
That'll be the ones. Okay, sound. Right. If you enjoyed Astro Boy, you may also like Stu. Anything?
I mean, I kind of mentioned it as an adaptation of something from Japan. You go and watch Ghost in the Shell with Scarlett Johansson just because she's in it and she looks very nice. But if you want to do something, take it for a different route and go for the whole, what is a robot, what is a soul, go and play Detroit Become Human, because I say this at least 3 times a year to everyone. It's a magnificent game. It's probably on PlayStation Plus Extra, more than likely. You probably got it if you've had Plus for a significant amount of time. If you like Heavy Rain, it's exactly the same people. It's a wonderful game, and it's remarkably deep about what robots are and what AI is. You can choose whichever way you want to go. You can choose to be an evil robot. You can choose to behave yourself and be sentient. It's up to you. It's a better experience than this.
Super. Okay. My answer, I'm going for a 2020 Oscar-nominated animation film called Wolf Walkers, set in Ireland. I think it's basically an allegory for how the English came and fucked things up in Ireland, like a lot of Irish movies are. gorgeous animation. Like, I haven't seen many animated films look quite the same as this. Incredible. It's about a pack of wolves that the Irish are trying to drive out of the country, and it's all magical and whimsical and demonic and lovely and the kind of thing you want to see at this time of year. It's got a proper autumnal feel to it.
It's orangey.
Yeah, oranges, greens, lovely, great film. Really, really enjoyed it. Should have won the Oscar that year. It's tremendous.
Are you saying this because we're yet again slagging off Ireland and the one of them looks like Tara?
I suppose she does a little bit. That's the main character in it. That wasn't the reason why. It's just a great film that popped up on my TikTok the other day, and I wouldn't mind watching that again. So yeah, I think that's definitely one to watch if you like this. I think it's just a better story than Astro Boy. Right, okay. So as I said, the plan is for the next episode to be the music cast to be out next week. Then we'll be back doing a question cast, and we'll do a couple of episodes for December, and then we'll be having a bit of a break until January. That's the plan anyway. So make sure you've got us on all of the socials at Cage Fighting Pod. I have opened up a Threads account today. I don't quite know what I think about it yet, but we shall certainly see. The plan is I'm also going to have a look at the other one, that Blue Sky, over the weekend, because Todd DeWitt, our good buddy, mentioned that as well, saying it's fun over there. So we'll have a look. But yeah, join us at Cage Fighting Pod. Email to cagefightingpod@gmail.com and all of that stuff. Make sure you've got us on whatever podcatcher that you listen to us on, and a 5-star review would be beautiful. So for this week, Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, everyone. Put your lights up. Enjoy yourselves.
And it's goodbye from me. And remember, be excellent to each other.